So hey folks, welcome back to Sea Change session number 2 here, looking at impact investing. Yeah, we did intros in part 1, got to know you a little bit. Part 2 here, I want to do some synthesis of some ideas, throw out some kind of big questions to all of us. And I'm not going to call on people, just raise your hand or just jump in. We'll kind of have about 15 minutes of this, so I'm excited to get your input. And Melissa, it's very much the question that you asked us. What is this line between impact investing and more traditional, venture capital investing? I've been wrestling with this question for the last 25 years. People always say to me, "Why are you interested in impact investment?" Because the returns are more limited, right? Why put any kind of filter on your deal flow? Right? Why not open it up to everything, not just impact investing, right? The return, and some people say too, oh, if you're an impact investor, you just have to get used to lower returns, right? Because you're making sacrifices. So that's the football that I kind of want to kick around a little bit here between the 5 of us. Anybody can start, but Melissa, maybe to you, because you say you're not a traditional impact investor. You've got a mixture of both. What do you see as the line between more traditional VC work and kind of pure, whatever pure means, impact investing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think that the real answer is that there isn't a line anymore. At the end of the day, we're all building and investing. As a founder, you're building something. As an investor, you're backing something that delivers a product or a service to an end consumer. And these days, that consumer is where we all meet in the middle. And these days, consumers are asking brands to take a responsibility and have a voice on what's happening in our world, whether that's social justice or climate change. And so that's where I think, traditional impact investing and traditional VC intersect, which is that end consumer. Traditionally, not every VC had an ESG lens, but for me, James mentioned earlier writing a book and the work that goes into doing a deal. For me, impact has become part of that book that I'm writing. And I definitely believe in checklists, providing good outcomes. For me, asking what stance a brand is taking on these issues has become part of that checklist in that book that I'm writing when I do any deal.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and just, from the Patagonia standpoint, I referenced the same quote last time, but our founder, Yvon Chouinard, said, every time I've done something good for the planet, it's made him money. And that wasn't his intention. But I think more and more that mindset is merging with the business and investment thesis, thinking about planetary impact, social impact, as Melissa said, customers are going to ask for it in any company, not just a consumer-facing brand, but banks, other service providers, they should have good answers for it. So I think that'll only grow, and I've been on funds where LPs have asked, they've asked the fund questions. And so you need to have a stance on what is the impact of the dollar that you're investing, and the business case is going to build. And we certainly see that from the Patagonia side and take that same lens from VC. So when you introduced yourself on the last session, you mentioned like this tension, and there doesn't have to be. I have that same drive in me to prove that it doesn't have to be there. And I think we're making that shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I will say in terms of support of that transition has already happened. A lot of people point to the letter that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, this past year. And just in case that's not familiar to you, BlackRock, I think they have $7 trillion under management, the largest asset manager in the world. He writes a letter every year to the broader investment community, and there's been an ESG theme in there repeatedly, but never more central or more strongly worded than this last year. And in fact, despite the fact that there are literally trillions of dollars there were literally trillions of dollars already flowing into ESG funds. I believe in 2020 that figure doubled. And so if you're looking for evidence that we've turned the corner, look no farther. At the same time, I guess I would say that this notion of time horizon is an important one when thinking about what is still the role of impact, for example. And when those great Patagonia examples came up earlier on, I couldn't help but think about the organic cotton story, where there's just such tremendous courage and leadership embodied in decisions that are made on the basis that this just must exist, and so we must do it. And then but having the conviction that eventually there will be a business model there is critical. We've had investors in the same deal over time, initially motivated by that same sense that this is a technology that the world really needs, and that's why I'm doing it. But then as the technology gets closer to maturation, we have the same people putting more money in, saying, I can see there's an exit here, and it's going to be out of this world. So yeah, fascinating question, no clean answer, but I think that continuum ideas may be helpful to keep in mind.
I think there's so much to be gained from naming movements, whether you're calling it ESG or impact. There's a way to create sort of a brand around it, which garners resources, which creates actionable teams that are pursuing under mission, and I think it helps, generally speaking, build sort of a movement or revolution. But there's also a flip side to that, where the greenwashing side, people take advantage of the fact that this can certainly be leveraged in brands, and for many respects, I think impact and ESG has actually been around for a long time. It's been embedded in companies, it's been part of companies, and now that we've got names for it, we're able to actually bring more to bear to the effort. I generally speaking, I worked in this small partnership that went around the country and actually taught about various forms of capital and structure for various forms of mission orientation. So whether you're doing something that could potentially attract nonprofit type grant dollars, or something that could attract something from the corpus of a foundation through PRI or MRI, mission-related investing, all the way through to the more extreme of venture capital impact funds. The point being is that there's a lot of different forms out there of impact. And what's so beautiful to see is how this has bloomed over time, because we've given it a name and we've put effort and people and action and passion behind it. It's messy business when you're building something so revolutionary as a movement like this. And it's exciting and absolutely critical to our future.
Yeah, thanks. We have about 10 minutes here. And I maybe want to bring it back to a kind of a personal note, maybe here for all of us, kind of at the end. I had a moment this summer flying across Lake Champlain in the Beta Technology planes, and we were flying in formation, and helicopter, 3 airplanes, the founders flying their airplanes, investors, the engineers, all up in the air flying over the lake. And I kind of looked around and said, well, this is really what impact investing is all about, right? It's when I'm up in this airplane and realizing that in 18 months to 2 years, I'm going to be flying over the lake in a soundless, glass bubble, electric airplane, eVTOL. We're going to take off vertically. We're going to fly in a fixed wing, and we're going to plug it in when we get over to the Plattsburgh airport, right? Not that we have to, we could fly back on one charge, but we're going to plug it in. Solar panels are going to put energy in, and we're going to fly back. And I was like, you know what? On a personal note, that's why I do what I do. It's just so incredibly satisfying. And I'm wondering if there were some, shining moments for the 4 of you, and Alex, I would imagine like the first time you put on those sunglasses that are made out of discarded and recycled fish nets. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. But, you know, are there moments for you guys where you say, you know what, you know, this is worth all the hard work that I know we all put in?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to speak to that and actually extend on the last question, which is it is just hard work. You know, there's are easy ways to make a buck. Sometimes solving some of our environmental issues are just a pain in the butt. And for Borreo, the company that you referred to earlier and we're just referring to, they take dirty, disgusting fish nets from the ocean. They pay local fishermen in South America for them. They clean them by hand, or at least when they started, they cleaned them all by hand, shredded them up, recycled them into sunglasses and skateboards. And the way they tell it is they say, we want to buy these dirty old cut up fish nets. And they, you know, the fishermen give them a crazy look like there's nothing here. They saw the value in that. They came back with them a few months later with that first skateboard. And they're like, this is fish nets. Like that for me, like inspires me, because everybody before them, this is waste. Like this stuff ends up in landfill, almost best case, you know, maybe it just gets thrown over the side of a boat. But they're, you know, like, we can do something with this. And they had a small team that was really passionate about solving this issue. Fast forward 5 years, those fish nets are in all of Patagonia's hat brims. So, you know, it's extended from we can do something to, hey, we're this material provider. A ton of nylon gets used around the world every day. We can provide, there's enough fish. Unfortunately, there's so much fish net pollution in our oceans that there's plenty to provide. So for me, like, that's just amazing for those people who find, you know, every entrepreneur is finding an opening where they think they can add value. And I get inspired by those who see the value in literally the stuff that people are just getting rid of. They see no value in it, and it's staring them in the face. So we have a few examples of that. And the Borreo is a very cool team that would definitely love to windsurf on the lake when that time comes, because they're fully aligned with, like, you know, they just, you know, they're in it for the right reasons. And I think they will, you know, have a very successful business. They're already getting there, but they were inspired by the problem first and have put all their resources into that.
It's a great story. Anybody else?
Robert, I love your story about flying across Lake Champlain in the Beta airplanes, because of course taking flight is the ultimate metaphor for, you know, taking off, and there you were actually doing it. That's going to be really hard to beat. But I will say, you know, as a battery investor, one of the big problems that, you know, the next generation of batteries is trying to solve is the flammability of current lithium-ion batteries. And I think people know from getting on planes when there's multiple questions about what check bags and instructions as to what to do if your phone slips behind you in the seat. And we've probably all seen the videos of exploding phones and exploding cars and everything. There is a wave of companies emerging just in the past few years that have figured out how to make these solid state lithium-ion batteries. And, you know, we were fortunate to put money early on into one of the pioneers in the space. And I will never forget the moment in their conference room when they showed us the first solid state cell functioning, connected to a light that was glowing. And then they took out a pair of scissors and they said, "Are you ready?" And they went about cutting that cell. You know, and any other battery would have caught fire immediately as the terminals connected with the metal, and that light just kept shining even as they cut it into tiny shreds.
That gives me great comfort, Terry, when I'm flying in the electric airplane.
We'll make sure you get those batteries.
I want those kind. That's a great story too.
I would just add, you know, around your inspiration and the story you shared about the inspiration for starting Sea Change. While I'm in Connecticut now, we spent the better part of the summer this past year up in Vermont. And there was a morning when we hiked up to Stowe Pinnacle before work, and we had brought a camping French press with us, and we sat there drinking coffee as the sun was rising over Stowe. And, you know, I think a lot about, I think this was actually the founding story, part of the founding story for Seventh Generation, another Vermont company, which was how thinking about 7 generations from now, in everything we do. For me, you know, having that morning up on Stowe Pinnacle, having my coffee looking out over the mountains, or skiing at Stowe, or paddling down the river, that's why I get up every day, and I want to preserve that beauty and preserve Vermont for every generation to come.
Well, come on, we're going to do a summer session of this as well, and we're going to do all of that stuff. Well, and you can lead a group of founders or a group of investors up that mountain, and with that, a couple French presses maybe, and watch the sunrise. I look forward to that, Melissa. We're going to tag you for that.
A morning
Yeah.
session. I would be happy to lead it.
Right?
Yes.
Early risers, boom, up the mountain with your to drink some coffee. I love that. Yeah, thanks. And James, anything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, to build off of that, so much inspiration coming from nature, you know, my whole life, and to be able to see that the work that we're doing is not only, you know, helping conserve, preserve, but also getting us prepared for essentially climate readiness and adaptation. I think, you know, my take on moments of inspiration, you know, I would just put out there that we are in a time of a lot of disparity and a lot of bizarre contrast. High technological innovation with really down to the soil, literally, you know, very human elements and efforts, and everything that's happening in between. So specifically, if you look at what's happening in regenerative agriculture, right? I mean, some of these practices have been touted for years, and seeing, you know, being able to put in microbial products that are additive to the soil, to be able to take practices and use technologies that support no-till or little-till approaches to farming. And then you contrast that with, you know, an experience of being in a lab surrounded by nuclear physicists that have figured out how to accelerate photosynthesis and are creating nutrition products, and essentially doing what Ford did with the assembly line to food manufacturing, and disrupting a number of other industries as well. So we live in this world of great contrast, and I see a lot of inspiration. I have certainly concern in that, but I see a vision of the future that really could, you know, help us be prepared for what's coming.
That's great. I'm so grateful, guys. We're going to wrap here, but I feel like we could go on all afternoon. When we do this in person, I hope that we will, and that we'll take this right straight through the night, invite all kinds of other people when we're actually doing this in person to join us, right? That's the idea. On that note, we will be doing some lab breakouts, and I invite all the folks listening to join us. Love to get to know you in that lab session. Bring your questions. We're just going to be taking questions throughout that session, and we'll have a couple other people joining us as well to help out. So we look forward to seeing you know, the listening audience, the watching audience then. So thank you, guys. It was just such a pleasurable afternoon spent with you. And we'll see all of you again in the lab session. And yeah, get outside, have fun. And thanks again for joining.